I'm going to use the lathe and a turning technique called Multiaxis turning to make a somewhat traditional 20th century style pipe stem. I think I've got this off a little bit. These are some that I made, I think all today, in working out technique, and they're still rustic. A perfectly acceptable, if you look at the pictures of the ones that Alan made, a perfectly acceptable and traditional looking stem can be made. I made all of these with cherry, and I think that it is very wise to stay with woods that you know are safe. The inside of your mouth is vascular. Anything that you put into your mouth is taken in as a medicine, not just as a food. You don't have to swallow it. Also, you don't know what the wood is going to do when it's interacting with the pipe smoke and the heat, the tobacco smoke and the heat. And so the best thing to do is use things that you know are safe. The normal temperate climate fruit woods, cherry, apple, pear, peach, would be fine. Food safe woods such as sycamore would be fine. Better safe than sorry. And I'm also treating with beeswax. I wouldn't use super glue or shell wax or any of the things that turners often use on pins and stuff, because again, you don't want it in your mouth. First thing I'm going to do with this blank, I've drilled it all the way through for the airway, is I'm just going to turn it down into a dowel. This is standard rounding off. It's stock and trade turning work. Using a gouge. Little flat right there. Okay, we're round. I'm going to square the ends off. I tend to forget when I'm doing a video, and that's just a matter of going down. Now stopping. We're going to flip it over. Again. And all that does is square it off here. Now, this is the multi-axis part. Let me back this up so I've got more throw. I've been making videos and the camera's been having battery problems, so I put more work into this than it looks like, because I've made about 9 stems with the result of no video. Now this is the multi-axis part. I'm going to keep up here at the head, I'm going to keep this in the air hole. It's not going to move out of there. But here, I'm going to go to one side and then the other. What that allows is it'll spin off center, and when I cut up here, I can cut a scoop first on one side, and then I'll flip over to the other side, and it'll spin off center, and I can cut a scoop on the other side. And that allows you this conical flattening that is useful in turning for knife handles. I made this tool handle. You can see here that when my thumb is there, it lets me know that the tip is oriented in a way that I want it to be oriented. Multi-axis turning hand, it's pretty. If you're going to do ornamental work, you can do all kinds of shapes with it. But if you're a practical Bosch 'em out sort of turner, such as I am, I like to know what I can use it for, and this is a case where I can use multi-axis turning, because what I want is this narrowing for the pipe stem. So, here we go. I'm going to go over almost that. There's no point in measuring. I can pretty much tell a straight line, and I've only got that much room. I'm going to go roughly halfway. Tighten as little as you can get away with, because you've got very little wood here, and this is a fairly stressing situation for the wood anyway. Start at a lower speed. Use a small tool. A small tool presents less metal to the surface of the wood. Get your feel for it. Get as close as you can without hitting the edge. Remember, it's off center. Once you got your feel, turn it up. It'll cut better. You notice I'm not using the great big gouge. I just don't want that much metal I don't want that length on this dowel dragging and pulling. I'm tightening every time I do this. That's going this way. And that's what we've got, is a scooping in there. It needs to be more. So that side is now scooped. What I'm going to do, you can see where I was. I'm just going to go to the other side. And mount up. That means that the other side of the wood will then be presenting more where it was less. And so I can cut a scoop away from it. Start slow till you get your feel. You can't see this because I'm having to use a tripod, but over the wood there's ghost wood, and that's what you look at the top. I'm not looking here. That doesn't matter, okay? What matters is where I'm cutting, because I can see the scoop of how it's coming out. Discovered with multi-axis turning that it's best to check. It's very difficult to tell where you are. I've just about got symmetrical cuts on here. Now, if you can't tell, if one side is bigger than the other, but you don't know what side you're cutting on, here's a way to check. Turn it on and come over where it's round and just put a little tiny mark in. Oops, there you go. And then see which side it's cutting on. I can see a little bitty mark there. That means that I'm cutting right here on this side. If it had cut over here, I'd be cutting in this scoop. I'm going to leave this fairly thick. I'll cut it a little bit more since it's on that side. And be done with it. Now, I'm going to do this part where it actually goes into your mouth. I'm going to do that part on the sanding disc. I could have left more. I could have cut farther back here, left that there. Then I could have shaped it with the multi-axis and then cut it off. But, you know, that's 6 of one, half does the other. What I do want to point out right now is that I'm going to go back into the centers, just straight center. I've still got lots of wood on each side. I can tighten up, and I want to finish this now before I have less wood. The minute I start making mouthpieces and tenons, I've got less wood, so I want to go on and finish. The tenon does not have to be finished, so you do not have to worry about sanding it or beeswaxing it or anything of the sort. It doesn't make one daggone bit of difference, and it probably does a better grip if it's unfinished anyway. What does need to be finished is this actual mouthpiece. Under ideal circumstances with a more scrupulous and thorough turner, we'd probably go up to about 1200 grit. I'm going to max out at 180 because that's what I've got lying around. It needs to be sanded better than that. am going to use some steel wool. It will catch. It can't help it, but I can always take the little bits off. It's not the end of the world. And it does do a very, very nice job of final finishing, as would better sandpaper, I suppose. But okay, so that actually looks pretty good. Now I'm going to step over to the sanding plate and knock these edges off. If you don't know what a sanding disc is, look for the video or write to us and we'll tell you where it is. See what I've done? About carving with a sand plate or sanding disc on the lathe. That's what I'm using. Now, I don't really want to finish that off while it's turning because it's just stressful. And the lathe can be used as a very, very good mount for sanding. And this is in a number of applications, and so I recommend that you just remember that. Beats the heck out of holding it down on your knee and then trying to sand it that way. So I now have a rustic mouthpiece, perfectly usable, perfectly safe. I'm going to put some beeswax on it. With my filthy hands. Ideally, we would not have paint and sawdust and everything, but you're not going to use this, so don't worry about it. Last step, the tenon. Bring it over here. As little pressure as possible because it's going in here on your mouthpiece that you just did. So don't mess it up. I'm going to use a tool called a plunge tool. I'll use this one this time. And cut in. If I were making this for a real fight and not for a demo, I would have to know what size mortise hole had been cut or drilled for the tenon to go into, and let's pretend that it would be this big, and I would cut down to that size. That's all, okay? I'm doing this for demo, and so it doesn't really matter. If I want this to fit a little bit better, I might take, it's called a 3-cornered tool. I made it out of Sabatier knife sharpening thing, and cut 3 planes on it to make a pyramid. That way you got 3 cutting surfaces and the tip. I can undercut a little bit, and that way I know that I don't have a little bit of a bulge there that's going to keep the mortise and tenon joint from being perfectly flush along the line of the pipe. Let me do a little bit right there, just because that's where I was cutting. And I'm done.